Welcome to Module 1. This is the overview of organic dairy production, an integrated approach. This is the first of a series of 10 modules that will cover some of the more important topics relative to organic dairy production. My name is Cindy Daley. I run an organic dairy program at California State University at Chico College of Agriculture. Our program is a pasture-based program with 90 crossbred New Zealand-style Jersey cows currently milking in the herd. We've been producing organic milk since 2007. I'm just one of a number of instructors who will be presenting these modules as narrated PowerPoints, so sit back and enjoy the course. What we'll cover in this module is an overview of the organic dairy industry. We'll discuss what organic milk is, how it's different than conventional. We'll talk about the significant historical events that have led to the organic movement, and cover the essential components of a successful organic dairy operation as a kind of segue into the modules that will follow. Here are the required readings for Module 1. There is a link to each article posted within the module itself. Click on that link and read the assignment prior to taking the quiz at the end of the module. So what are the foundations for organic production practice? Well, the primary focus is to do everything possible to build soil organic matter and soil biology, because it's that soil fertility that's the key to the success of the entire program. Philosophically, the organic paradigm really supports that healthy soil, healthy food, healthy people mantra. You are what you eat, and it applies to all living things, whether we're talking about forage crops, dairy cows, or the American public. The history of the organic movement really began back in the 40s with some of the early writings of Sir Albert Howard. He was born in 1873. He was a botanist and really is considered to be the father of modern organic agriculture. Howard worked in India as an ag advisor, and he was in charge of the government research farm there at Indore. Among his many responsibilities was seminars, and he traveled throughout India to teach Western farming techniques. And what he found was that the Indians actually had a much better approach. One of the important aspects of the work that Howard had done was that he did notice that there was a connection between healthy soils and healthy village populations and healthy livestock and healthy crops. Patrick Holden, who at the time was the director of the UK Soil Association, quoted Howard as having said that the health of the soil, plants, and animal and man is one and indivisible. He published a variety of works, including The Soil and Health, a study of organic agriculture, which really went on to influence some of the other major icons in the organic dairy industry, like Lady Eve Balfour and J. Rodell. To really do the history of the organic movement justice, we have to talk about Lady Eve Balfour. She came on slightly later than Sir Albert, and was one of the first women to study agriculture at an English university. She graduated from the University of Reading. She began farming in 1920, was very interested in organic production practices, and together with her neighbor Ryan Nelson, she launched a long-term side-by-side scientific study of organic and chemical-based farming called the Hawley Experiment. And in 1943, she published that information in a book called The Living Soil, and that book continues to be an organic production classic. Lady Eve was also responsible for co-founding the Soil Association, which is one of the more long-standing, well-established associations promoting sustainable agriculture. And she was also very instrumental in developing what was the first organic dairy in Wales. The organic industry as a whole has grown significantly since the day of Lady Eve Balfour. According to the Organic Trade Association, the U.S. organic industry grew about 9.5% in 2011, reaching a total of about $31.5 billion in total sales. 78% of the U.S. families buy something organic on a regular basis. 40% of the organic market itself is in fruit and vegetables, which tends to be the most popular organic product on the market today. 6% of the organic market is in organic dairy products. Overall, the organic industry is producing jobs at about 4 times the national average. It's one area of production agriculture that's really growing and creating new jobs. At the retail level, Sales for organic dairy products has been on a steady increase since 1997. And if you look at the overall retail prices, organic milk gets about twice what conventional milk is bringing in the store. Some of the latest census data would show that we've got about 202,000 organic dairy cows certified in the U.S. as of '08. That's up significantly from 2005, just a few years earlier, where it stood at about 87,000. So you can see there's a significant jump in the number of cows that have been certified as organic. There are over 2,000 organic dairies in the U.S. That's kind of an underestimate, frankly. Wisconsin has the most organic dairies. California has the largest organic dairies, with about 18% of the total milk contributions coming from California. So the western region accounts for about 7% of all dairies and about 37% of the total milk volume. From a business perspective, if you're a conventional dairyman and you plan to go organic, there's some things that you ought to consider. And that is that prices of supplemental feeds like grain and concentrates and hay are significantly higher, roughly about 30% more for organically grown feeds. And those feeds will have to be fed to your cows for 12 months during that transition period. During that time, you're also going to be getting a lot less milk. About 30% less is an estimate in terms of a ballpark average. So during the transition, you'll be paying more for these organic feeds and getting less milk, and you'll also be selling that milk for conventional price. So a lot of advanced planning needs to happen during that period of time to make sure you can cover those additional costs. You also need to learn about grazing and grass management, and hopefully that's why you're here taking this course. Much of what we've learned about the economic sustainability of organic production systems is founded in a really strong grazing program. And lastly, also realize that you will be doing a lot more record keeping and have to keep track of a lot more paperwork. That's the nature of an organic certification, is that there is a lot more oversight, a lot more record keeping, a lot more office time. So you'll be in the office a little more often, unless of course you can afford to hire it all done. So what makes organic milk different than conventional milk? Well, basically, organically certified milk is produced under a very set of stringent regulations that are part of the National Organic Program. Highlights would include all organically certified livestock must consume a certified organic feed. So their diet has to be 100% certified organic. No genetically modified organisms can be used in the process of making that organic milk. All dairy animals must be grazed on pasture after 6 months of age, no exception. And there are very limited use of any types of synthetic materials. There are a few that are allowed. You'll find those on the National Organic Standards list. Most of that kind of thing will be covered in module number 10. And finally, all of the production practices that were used in the process of making that organic milk have to be certified and maintained by a third-party certification association. They're the individuals that are responsible for verifying that the production practices do in fact meet the National Organic Program standard. Who makes and enforces these rules? Well, the National Organic Program, or the NOP, was developed by the USDA to implement the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990. This is the OFPA, and that was established to set the national standard for what qualified for the USDA organic seal or label. So basically, the National Organic Program is designed to implement or enforce the standards that are set forth in the Organic Foods Production Act. Now, the National Organic Standards Board, or the NOSB, is a committee of organic community members that are appointed to advise the USDA on the national list. That national list is a list of all materials and products and production systems that meet the regulatory guidelines under the Organic Foods Production Act. The mission of the NOSB is to ensure the integrity of the organic seal. Now, the third-party certifier, they are organizations that are accredited by the NOSB to verify that farmers are in fact meeting the certification standards. And they do that through routine inspections, and they are the actual boots on the ground that ensures that the integrity of the organic label is being served. Every certified farm or dairy has to develop what's called an organic system plan, or an OSP. The OSP is the complete farm management plan that clearly defines how each step of the production system takes place. And it includes things like your organic seed, fertilizer, weed and pest control methods, your tillage, your harvesting methods, irrigation practices, what equipment you use, your washout logs, soil and water conservation practices, what substances you use. It includes all your monitoring methods and the complete documentation of everything that you've done. Plans to prevent contamination also are located in your OSP. You must show that you prevent contamination or commingling of organic and conventional products if you happen to produce both on your farm. All aspects of the OSP must be approved by the third-party certifier that you have hired to ensure the fact that everything that you do meets with the National Organic Program. Here's a brief summary of the NOP standards for crop production. A much more detailed discussion will be found in Module 10. In brief, all organically certified ground must be managed organically for a minimum of 3 years to become certified. You must work to maintain and improve your soil fertility, minimize soil erosion, and do everything in your power to build soil profile. Organic production practices have been shown to scientifically to build soil organic matter and to actually increase the water holding capacity of your farm. To meet the NOP standards, there can be no commingling of organic and conventional crops. Only approved inputs can be used. No genetically modified organisms of any kind can be used. And certainly you cannot use sewage sludge or any irradiated type products in the production of organic crops. It's also important to do everything you can to purchase organic seed when it's available, and never use any seed that's been treated with fungicide under any circumstance. In addition to the cropping system plan, the OSP will also include your livestock management plan. To be considered organic, livestock need to be born to a cow that has been managed organically since the last third of gestation. Or, as a one-time transition, you can take conventional animals, feed them organically for 1 year, and then certify them as organic, as long as they are then continue to be managed as organic from then on. The livestock also have a mandatory outdoor access regulation, so all animals must be maintained outdoors. With respect to dairy cattle, there's also a minimum grazing requirement of 120 days of grazing with a 30% dry matter intake from pasture that must be documented with your records, with your grazing records. In the case of dairy, the OSP will include a complete pasture management plan that includes everything, irrigation rates, the grazing times, rotations, seeding rates, aeration, fertilization, everything that happens on the pasture needs to be recorded and become part of your organic system plan. The organic livestock management plan is truly an integrated systems-based approach. There are 5 interconnected components. Each of these links in the chain are essential. One weak sister and the entire program is compromised. When each of these essential components are taken to their optimum, the system then begins to work in a synergy, and where one component actually feeds the next. The goal is to create a management plan that optimizes each area for the overall health and productivity of the herd, and certainly for the overall profitability of the dairy. You'll find more detailed instructions on each of these components in the modules to come. Organic farmers seek to build soil or enhance its inherent fertility with methods like crop rotations, animal and green manures, and cover crops. And when you think about it, it's pretty logical because it's the source of most of the plant nutrition, and those plants feed your livestock, and the livestock produce food for us, for humans. So we really need to optimize that base, that resource that's available to us in any way possible. Most of the soils discussion will be saved for Module 3, a very important module in this particular course, so pay close attention. What I wanted to do is just introduce some basic concepts with respect to soil and soil parameters that you need to be aware of. The first is soil organic matter. Needs to be between 3 and 5% in your soils. That's an indication of some pretty good biology happening there. Optimal levels of essential plant nutrients need to be available. Optimal pHs between 6.3 and 6.5. That will ensure that those nutrients and minerals are available to the plants. You need to have a good soil structure. You need to have some aeration channels so that we can move oxygen and water through this system. And of course, ample microscopic organisms and a healthy population of macroscopic organisms like earthworms and sow bugs, centipedes and beetles. They're wonderful things. We have to feed the soil because the soil is going to feed us. Another aspect of the livestock management plan is a grazing program. We're going to cover quite a bit about pasture management and grazing in module number 5. It's a really wonderful module. You'll get a lot out of that. So I'm going to just introduce some basic concepts here in terms of what effective pasture management can return to an operation. Certainly you can reduce your overall amount of grain that you purchase for your livestock. Grass can substitute for grain under situations where the pasture management has been optimized. We've seen situations where we've increased net energy of lactation significantly with effective pasture management and grazing programs. You'll reduce the amount of mechanical forage harvesting and manure spreading that takes place because basically the cow becomes your mechanical harvester. She's also your manure spreader. You'll lower your fertilizer cost as you move manure nutrients throughout the entire paddock, and you return those directly to the soil where it belongs. You'll improve that soil profile. There's a lot of data out there to show that these perennial pastures can actually build soil profile. We're building soil organic matter. It's a great habitat for mycorrhizae fungus, and so we're sequestering carbon from the atmosphere as well. And you'll improve your livestock herd health. You'll see a reduction in overall lameness and an improvement in reproductive fertility, and you'll see less digestive disease as well. So there's a lot that can be gained in your organic dairy program with effective pasture management and a solid grazing program. Some of the fundamentals to keep in mind on effective grazing practices are basically allow for adequate recovery time from the previous grazing. Don't go back in and try to regraze plants that are still in phase 1. You'll basically kill them. You need to optimize the sunlight for optimal nutrient content and quality, which means that you really need to allow those plants to come back into phase 2 at the end of phase 2 before they're grazed again. During that period, those plants are at their highest in terms of nutritive content and overall digestibility. And that's what the graph on the right is indicating, that as these grasses age and get into phase 3, you're losing protein, you're losing digestibility. In other words, you're losing milk in those forages. So these are really the keys to effective grazing, which will be discussed in much more detail in the grazing modules to come. All successful organic dairy farms pay very close attention to meeting the fluctuating nutritional needs of the dairy cow throughout her life cycle. Sound nutrition pays dividends in a number of ways, including optimal milk production, higher herd health, and reduced cull rates. The table to the right is really quite instructive. It shows the costs that are associated with nutrition-related diseases. To prevent disease, it's important to balance the ration to meet the cow's nutritional requirements for protein, energy, vitamins, minerals, and to do this at every stage of her production, which changes throughout the year, from fresh cow to early lactation, to late lactation, dry cows. Deficiencies will reveal themselves through poor production, through lameness issues, and through health breaks within the herd. The cow is perfectly designed for grazing, and from her natural grazing behaviors to her rumen, her teeth orientation, and the design of her feet and legs, she's a natural grazing machine. The cow's digestive system is really uniquely designed to break down forages, to convert cellulose from the plant cell wall into energy for the synthesis of milk and other animal proteins for human consumption. Making sure that that cow receives all of her essential nutrients while grazing can be a challenge because not only are her needs fluctuating throughout her production cycle, but the pasture forages are also fluctuating in not only yield but in quality throughout the year. So it is a bit of a challenge. Basic nutritional concepts will reveal that lactating dairy cows consume about 4% of their mature weight in dry matter. That's known as their dry matter demand, or DMD. The total dry matter demand fluctuates with the stage of production and with the level of milk production. So larger cows have higher milk production and they also have a higher DMD. Dry matter intake, on the other hand, or DMI, is the amount of dry matter that the cow actually consumes. Now, DMI is going to vary a lot with the stage of production, but also with the quality of feed that she consumes. The lower quality feeds tend to be less digestible and therefore result in a slower movement through the digestive process, yielding total less nutrients to the cow. The diet of the dairy cow needs to be balanced for protein, energy, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So typically, feeds are going to be formulated through a ration formulation package into a balanced diet for all those essential components. Each component is going to be tested by a nutritional lab to determine what each can contribute to the diet. Then these values are used to balance the ration. An example diet is provided on this slide. There is some protein coming from each feed ingredient. The ration needs to be 15% protein to support the cow's protein requirement in the herd. So the total proportion of the diet that is protein is 6.25 pounds divided by the total 40 pounds of her DMD will equal a dry matter requirement of 15.6%. Therefore, this diet does appear to be balanced for protein. So now all other components of the diet will then have to be balanced. Every effort is made in an organic dairy production system to improve or enhance animal well-being. It's a critical step in the process toward preventative medicine and making happy cows. Stress is known to lower the immune system and may be the primary factor that sets the stage for animal disease. So housing is an important consideration with respect to cow comfort and animal health and wellness. And typically, barns and outbuildings, structures such as that are a seasonal consideration for cows because the organic cow typically spends most of her day out on pasture, except during the non-grazing season. In that case, the housing design is really critical for cow comfort. All adult cattle must be have outdoor access and the ability to exercise every day, unless, of course, there is severe weather conditions that would prevent that. Otherwise, regardless of grazing season or not, the cow needs to have outdoor access. If cows are indoors, they do need to have adequate ventilation. So ventilation, the airflow, needs to be checked to make sure that you're maintaining good air quality. Flooring is the other consideration with respect to cow comfort. Cows don't like to stand on concrete all day. It's really hard on their hooves and joints. You need to avoid slick concrete, place grooves in the cement in order to prevent slippage. Cows also need access to frequent feed and water. The more watering devices in your pastures and in your infrastructure, your facilities, the better. Cows will drink typically between 10 and 30 gallons of water a day, depending upon the time of year and the stage of their lactation. So the more access points to water, the better, and you'll make more milk. Bedding is also essential for cow comfort. All bedding that might be consumed has to be organically certified. For instance, if you use straw as your primary source of bedding material, that's something that could in fact be consumed by the cow. So if you're using straw, it needs to be organically certified straw. Pasture is considered to be extremely animal friendly. So it also prevents a lot of lamenesses. So it's important to provide lots of pasture for your organic cows and make sure that there's some adequate shade structures in those pastures during the heat of the summer. And of course, overall, using low-stress handling methods is really key. You just need to be kind. Be very kind. Healthy livestock are a reflection of this holistic approach to farm management, which involves balanced soils, nutrient-dense forages and feeds, and favorable living conditions, free from stress and disease. Your herd health statistics are usually quite indicative of management. If there is a break in any link in that chain, it will appear as a blemish in your herd health statistics. What organic dairy production is not, it's not about substituting an organically approved product for a conventional product. It's about building a system that is designed to prevent the disease, working together with the natural rhythms of the cow and with the ecosystem to produce a wholesome product for human consumption that's free of synthetic residues. So it is important to keep in mind this important quote from Harriet Bahar. Organic production isn't about substituting appropriate products for chemical products. Organic is about managing your system for maximum soil, plant, and animal health so that you don't need to use many of those kinds of products or off-farm inputs. Well said, Harriet. I'd like to take a few moments just to go through an example of an organic dairy herd health program. Let's talk about the program that we've developed for the university farm. We started milking cows organically in 2007, and we consider our herd health program to include some of the following. Number one, pasture management. We practice managed intensive grazing, where the cows are allocated fresh feed after every milking. We estimate that our DMI, or dry matter intake from pasture, is right around 50 to 60%, higher in the spring, lower in the fall. We reseed cool season grasses every fall. We overseed in the summer to some summer annuals in the spring. We aerate our soils because our soils happen to be very high in magnesium. It tends to make them very tight. So we will go through with an Airway style aeration device and break open those soils so we get more oxygen down into those channels. From an integrated pest management perspective, how do we control these external parasites? Well, we use fly traps, we use fly parasites as a biological type control. We have dung beetles out in our paddocks, which we're very pleased to have since we've eliminated the ivermectin applications, obviously, which we can't do in organic. We also have pasture-based poultry, which do a really nice job of breaking up those cow pats and pulling out any of the fly larvae that happen to be there. And we do a lot of composting for any of the pen scrapings that happen to be around the headquarter area. Other aspects of our herd health program at the university farm, it's our soil amendment program. We test our soil fairly regularly. We know that we have some deficiencies in calcium, boron, zinc, sulfur, and to some degree nitrogen. So we apply some of these products that are approved for organic use on a fairly regular basis. We also apply 5 tons of compost per acre to enhance the overall soil organic matter and to basically feed the soil food web. Our nutrient management plan includes managed intensive grazing, where the cows are basically moved through all sectors of the pasture in an intensive grazing where they're on for 12 hours and we rest that area for another 30 days. We compost our pen scrapings. We use that compost back onto our paddocks. We have a fairly healthy clover stand, which fixes nitrogen. We also use the poultry manure that comes from the chickens. As those chickens are rotated behind the cows, they are depositing some manure, which is really rich in nutrients, which also helps to feed our soil. Finally, the last components of our herd health program is certainly our low-stress animal handling protocols. The animals walk ever so quietly from the pasture into the parlor, and they walk ever so gently out. There is no whipping and spurring. We're pretty much a low-stress handling outfit. We also have a fairly extensive vaccination program. We view that as very cheap insurance to try and prevent disease because, again, it's all about prevention. Here is a list of the types of vaccinations that we would typically give to our dry cows. It's the IVR-PI3 BRSV complex with Haemophilus. We also vaccinate for leptospirosis because there is a history of lepto at the university farm. We also inoculate them against Clostridium, calf scours such as E. coli, Rhodocorona, etc., and J5 mastitis vaccine. So those are the kinds of vaccines that our dry cows would get prior to their next lactation. Calves, in order to prevent disease in calves at birth, they receive at least a minimum of 4 feedings of high-quality colostrum at birth. They also receive a nasal gin to help prevent pneumonia. At 3 months, we'll start their calfhood vaccines because at that point in time, the maternal antibodies from passive immunization should have expired, and those calves are ready to start stimulating their own immune competence. So at that point in time, we would give them a shot of IBR, PI3, BRSV, Haemophilus, and Clostridium. And I think then they're on their way. So I'd like to leave you with some general thoughts. Here is the holistic approach in review. Any successful organic dairy operation approaches their management from a holistic perspective. This farm is a living organism, and it functions best when each organ system is operating at its full potential. All things begin with well-balanced soil, with high organic matter to support a very rich, vibrant soil food web. Effective pasture management has a significant impact on the dairy's bottom line. Balanced rations for protein, energy, fiber, vitamins, minerals for every stage of the production cycle are really crucial. So you see, it's really all about prevention. And prevention is worth a pound of cure, as Benjamin Franklin once said. So you need to invest in your preventative care, and you will not be disappointed. I hope you enjoy the rest of these modules and complete the entire course. We think it's going to be a very valuable learning experience for you.